Open a channel. It's in-depth Trek.
Hello everyone, welcome to episode 7 of the In-Depth Trek podcast. This episode is called The Cloud. So it's the 7th episode of the podcast, however this is season 1 episode 6 of Voyager. So let's get into it, why don't we? So the stardate is 48546.2. Voyager has been journeying home for a couple of weeks now, as has been mentioned in Janeway's captain's log. I think it might be a personal log, captain's personal log. So the crew and captain are slowly adapting to life in the Delta Quadrant. This is revealed in the log at this point. They're the only Starfleet crew here, and it feels there should be more of a family, well, this is what Janeway says. It feels like there should be more of a family by this point. Janeway is walking around the ship and is experiencing how the crew is taking it. So Janeway, Harry and Tom are in the mess hall complimenting Neelix's food, which we all can assume wouldn't be the most tasty, but I'm sure it gets the job done. The past few episodes it just sounds like I've been slating Neelix, but he's really, he'd probably be a good guy to have around, So Harry wants Janeway to join them at the table to eat, but Tom explains why that isn't right. A captain would invite themselves to sit down, is Tom's argument. But Harry says something along the lines of, well, she's not exactly pressed for admirals and other captains to sit down with, so she needs people to invite her herself. Anyway, Janeway wants some coffee and goes to find Neelix. He compliments her and she is given the coffee substitute, but she insists it's okay, she really doesn't want it. Neelix then says it's not right for her to replicate it, given that other crew members probably wouldn't be able to do that. She accepts only to find it to be not quite to her taste, and then is subsequently called to the bridge. Janeway leaves the coffee, and let's just say it looked like diarrhea in a cup. So on the bridge, they've discovered some sort of nebula. They set a course for it. Then the famous Voyager quote, there's coffee in that nebula, occurs. And then we're in the Voyager introduction. Tom and Harry join on the bridge, probably after eating the food in the mess hall. Janeway is excited about raising morale, and Chakotay explains morale is pretty low at this point, and people are mourning due to being on the other side of the galaxy, away from the family and the friends and pets as well, stuff like that. So morale overall is quite low. Chakotay explains what animal guides are, and that an animal guide helps him. Janeway doesn't feel as close to the crew as she feels that Chakotay is, and asks Chakotay to kind of guide her on how to go about improving her relations with the crew. But she does show an interest in animal guides, and Chakotay's animal remains unknown, as it would be insulting to reveal what the animal is. But Chakotay does invite Janeway to help contact her own animal guide. So far so good. The nebula seems safe for the ship to enter to collect the particles, which would, I'm assuming, be used as some sort of energy reserve for replication purposes and things like that. So Janeway orders the engines to be engines ahead 1/4. Tuvok, this is a good scene as well. Tuvok ropes in Harry's comments of excitement. Harry is referred to as a senior officer by Tuvok. He says something along the lines of, Mr. Kim, it is not appropriate for you to be exclaiming like this, as it will... what does he say? Mr. Kim, it is not appropriate for you to be talking in this manner, as it may encourage other junior bridge officers to act in the same manner, or something along... terrible Tuvok impression, but you get the idea. And he seems confused by the fact that he's called a senior bridge officer, being only an ensign, you know. Bananas in pyjamas. B'Elanna recommends thrusters only, but there's like a build-up of dust on the side of the hull. It's referred to as dust at this point, but we'll get into that. But B'Elanna recommends to slow the ship down to thrusters only, but it doesn't help at all, and the ship shakes and then comes to a complete stop, and it's at this point that the ship has encountered some kind of energy barrier. It's actually hit into it, which is why the ship has stopped. Janeway then instructs Tom to just charge through the barrier, as it's only 15 metres deep, and I'm assuming a ship on impulse power. Because I'm sure I read somewhere that 1/4 impulse is like 1/4 of warp 1, I think. I'm sure I read something like that, and obviously half impulse is half the speed of warp 1, and I'm sure I read somewhere that that's the case. Anyway, the ship gets through quite easily. Tuvok says that he's never seen anything like it, and then Kim is quick to point this out. Mr. Tuvok, you've never seen anything like this either, have you? And it's great chemistry between all the actors on the ship. Tim Russ is really excellent with his micro expressions, and in my opinion Tuvok is the perfect Vulcan. It turns out the hole that Voyager's just made through ramming through that anywhere is already closed. Kes explains to Neelix, this is in the mess hall now, that the crew are explorers, because Neelix is just, complaining that, or every minor thing that they see in space they have to go and investigate. So Kes explains that the crew are explorers and that the captain cares about them. Neelix thinks that it's romantic inside the nebula and kisses Kes. Yeah, minor flaw that Kes is like 2 years old or something. Paedophile. Ship then goes to red alert as the ship is being bombarded with some kind of energy. It's unknown if this is an attack at this point, but regardless of this, the bombardment is going straight through the shields and it's draining Voyager's energy. Voyager tries to get out as quickly as possible, but it fails. The dust particles are continuing to increase as well. So Chakotay then informs the captain that we do have a torpedo that we can use that we do have 38 torpedoes that we can use. But Janeway is quick to say that they've got no way to replace them once they're gone. And that's something that I really think is overlooked in the later episodes. And Voyager really, really, really needed some form of continuity in this respect. I think, like firing a torpedo, something as small as that when you're alone, must come across as like a great big thing, because if you've only got 38 of them and you're like 70,000 light years from home, you've got to make them last, and you must only use them when absolutely necessary. Thrusters don't get them out. The phasers don't work either, and then Janeway yields to Chakotay and authorises one torpedo to be fired. So they fire a torpedo, and then after a rough ride they get out. They actually get out of the sort of energy barrier. Janeway then stands down red alert. Voyager's lost 11% of its energy reserves, as is revealed by Harry at this point. So by trying to gain energy, they've actually lost 11% of it. Janeway says she'll just have to give up coffee to try and save their energy that they've got. So at this point, Tom and Harry are walking through the ship. Tom loads a holodeck program, and Harry walks into an old pub. It's complete with a bar and a pool table. I've actually wrote down snooker table here, but it's pointed out later on that it's actually a pool table. It's set in France, I believe it's Marseille. Just branching off from that for a minute, the holodeck suites are such a good idea, and I don't feel that we're that far away from them, personally. I think, with VR headsets and artificial intelligence, I really don't think we're that far away from just being able to fully simulate VR without the headset, or just we could integrate the AI into the headset, and there's a lot of crazy things that can happen with that. But another thing to point out as well, it seems a bit odd to be running an entire holodeck program which requires a lot of energy during a power shortage on the ship, and nothing ever comes of this. But I did feel that something was off with Tom in this. I thought he'd might have been possessed by an alien or something. It was quite weird. I don't know, there was just something off with him in this scene. So Tom and Harry sit with a glass of wine each. I've wrote here, correction, it is a pool table as is shown by the pool hustlers, but obviously, yeah. Tom and Harry set up the table and start playing pool. Harry says he misses home and he asks Tom if he does as well, but Tom completely dodges the question. Tom's arc's pretty decent, looking at the show as a whole. I mean, he goes from this kind of prisoner to this very honourable person, and he's always honest and he's true to himself, which is something that I think's quite he's a very proud person, and in the earlier seasons he holds these cards very close to his chest, but in the later seasons he's very he's a really good character, and is often overlooked as well in people's top ones. But if you look at the development from him in season 1, especially from the first episode right to the end, goes through a great deal and comes out better for it, I would say. A reformed individual. So B'Elanna's researching the dust, and she's discovered something about it and goes to sickbay to ask the doctor for help with additional research. There's a great conversation between the doctor and B'Elanna at this point, and anyway, B'Elanna asks for a second opinion. The doctor reveals that the nucleogenic peptide bonds, not sure if that's a real thing or not, I have to look into that. Anyway, Janeway's in her ready room just doing some work. Chakotay comes in with his medicine bundle, which will help her find her animal guide. She's eager to learn and they proceed. Chakotay basically explains that with his Native American culture that they don't use weed anymore to have the hallucinogenic effects they have in a kuna, I think it's called, to find the spirit animals. It's just a device that simulates the effects of being high, basically. Janeway puts a hand on the device, and then Akuchi Moya, that's the first one I think so far. I'm far from the blood of my ancestors. Janeway starts tripping balls and enters into the spirit realm. She's on a beach in this kind of trip that she's on. She sees a lizard, which I think Chakotay says the first animal you see is your spirit guide, spirit animal. As soon as she sees the lizard, she's then interrupted by a buzz on the ready room door. This isn't the ready room. I've wrote ready room, it's the captain's room on the bridge, because the ready room's on the other side of the bridge. She apologises to Chakotay. It's B'Elanna. Her and the doctor have discovered that the nebula is in fact a life form, and everyone in the room's astonished. Janeway immediately goes to see if they've done damage to the life form. The doctor gets muted on the view screen because he's just talking and being condescending to everyone on the ship, on the bridge, so you just mute audio, basically. It's quite funny. So the doctor gets muted and he's ranting on the main view screen. The Voyager has in fact damaged the life form. So the doctor is at this point then unmuted and explains that they can help. B'Elanna explains that they can use radiation using a beam which is emitted from the ship to help. So the plan is set at this point. Voyager journeys back to the nebula, which is the life form. The ship is left at yellow alert. Neelix complains about it, and it's just so annoying, you know, like he's like, I'm not standing for this anymore. It's like, mate, you're on a fucking science vessel, just chill the fuck out. Like, I don't get why they made him this way. Like, nobody, like, I don't think anyone liked him at this point. Maybe that was the purpose of him. But I just don't know. And I've just wrote, vent him into the life form, just eject him out of the ship. But Janeway sorts him out, and she says, dismissed. And Neelix, not being a true Starfleet officer at this point, doesn't know what that means. And then Janeway says, that's the Starfleet expression for get out. And he's like, oh, okay. And I've wrote, Neelix got absolutely roasted by Janeway. So Voyager then engages 1/3 thrusters into the life form. Red alert also, the ship's shaken. And then they release their positive ions to assist the life form from the radiation beam. So the beam's being prepared to fire. Oh no, sorry, the positive ions come from the warp nacelles, which for anyone who doesn't know what the nacelles are, if you're just getting into Star Trek, it's the red and blue engines on the back of the ship that power the warp drive, basically. I think they create the warp field. I'd have to look into it again. But yeah, the beam's being prepared to fire. The life form attacks Voyager. It's from my best estimation, it sees Voyager as a kind of infection inside its body, and it's kind of its antibodies attacking the ship. That's probably the best way I could put it across audibly. So Voyager vents all of its fuel. It seems to help, and the ship's still in one piece. It's revealed that 14 crew members are injured, but it's all only minor injuries. At this point, they're deeper into the life form. Chakotay comes up with a plan to move without the engines at 200 kilometers per hour, which sounds fast, but in something the size of a nebula, it's slower than slow. Then Neelix and Kes come onto the bridge with snacks. It's like, what the fuck, man? Like, do you know what I mean? Neelix announces that he is now the morale officer, which I couldn't possibly think of a worse person to improve morale than some little cretinous globule like Neelix. And Janeway accepts one of the snacks off the tray to kind of like say, yeah, okay, you're the morale officer. But they're back at the wound now, where Voyager originally entered. Which is strange, because earlier on it said the wound had closed, so that's kind of... Although, yeah, it did fire a torpedo through it, that might have made lasting damage, which I think that's what they were on about initially. Never mind me. The fire the beam, it is working, but it only helped by 0.4%. It only increased its healing by 0.4%. The Doctor then refers to suturing the wound, which is something that we used to do in ancient Earth times, 2023. He thinks that'll help. And they can use the ship itself as like the needle. But then they ask the Doctor how would they do that, and he goes, well, I can't help you with that. So they need to launch a probe to distract the life form, much like you need to give a dog a treat whilst you're tending to a cut on its leg or something like that, as kind of like a distraction. And that's whilst they perform the surgery on the life form, basically. Voyager then goes into position and they use the beams again, but this time the wound heals much faster. Voyager gets out and the wound continues to close, so it's continuing to heal itself. And they're in the clear. So the episode kind of closes out with a captain's log saying that 20% of the ship's entire energy is gone, but they've found a planet a few light years away that has energy that they can use. Harry then offers Janeway to join them in the holodeck. She accepts the offer, and she really seems to like the pub. It's kind of like a nice getaway for them. Janeway wants to play pool, and she plays it like a true hustler. She asks Chakotay for his stick, as in the pool cue, just leading them all on, making them think that she doesn't have a clue about it. And then she just hustles all of them and pots like 5 balls in one hit. It's really cool. And yeah, I just mean, like, Janeway as a whole is a really cool character, you know. One of my favourite characters in anything, really. Really good episode overall. There's probably a few things I would change in. Just probably wouldn't have Neelix in it at all. I mean, I can even get away with Kess, you know, like the episode Fury where she comes back in a later season. Like, I can even get away with that, but it just seems 9 out of 10 Neelix episodes are just not good. And it seems this early on in season 1 there's a big focus on him. I'm talking about him a lot. You know, I don't actually hate the character. He does end up redeeming himself quite well. So that's what I would change. I'm on X, as everyone knows. I'm on YouTube, which the episodes on YouTube go up the same day as they're released on Spotify, so you can listen on your preferred platform. And I just want to thank everyone who's listened from the start so far. Obviously we've got more episodes coming. We're about how far we're through season 1 now. We're up to episode 6, so we're about a third of the way through, over a third of the way through season 6 at this point. That's season 1 at this point, so it's going well. I'm enjoying it. Just going to be continuing on at a steady pace. I've got a guest lined up for the end of season 1, and I'm thinking at the end of each season I'm going to be talking about a character specifically with that guest from the show, so that will be great. So yeah, I've said all of the social media stuff. Just let me know what you think of it in the comments on YouTube, or by leaving a review on Spotify, or let me know on X. You can always comment or retweet. Is it still called retweet? I think it is, isn't it? That's bizarre. It's called retweet, yet they changed it from Twitter to X. Anyway, that's probably something, or repost, I don't know what it is now. But yeah, guys, thanks very much. I'll see you in the next episode, which will be episode